Have you ever caught a strange, faint smell and paused just for a moment, wondering, is that me? If you're over 60 and you've ever asked yourself that question in private, you're not alone. And more importantly, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Because the truth is, many older women begin to notice subtle changes in how their bodies smell. Not because they're unclean, not because they're unhygienic, but because of 8 small bathroom habits they've been doing for years, maybe even decades, that are silently working against them. Habits like using the wrong kind of soap or wearing the same robe every evening, things that feel familiar, harmless, even comforting, until one day someone hugs you and then pulls away. No words are spoken, but you feel it. And suddenly, you start questioning yourself. This video is not about shame, it's about science. And more than that, it's about healing. Because once you understand what's happening inside your body and around it, you'll realize that these changes are not a sentence, they're a signal. And the good news? Every single one of these habits can be changed. Easily, gently, and without expensive products. So if you've ever felt nervous about closeness, avoided sitting too near, or doubted yourself in silence, you need to hear this. We're going to talk about 8 things most women don't even realize they're doing, and the simple shifts that can restore your freshness, confidence, and dignity without changing who you are. Stay with me. This might be the moment you finally feel like yourself again. I remember the first time I truly felt distant from myself. Was it dramatic? No illness, no accident, no harsh words from anyone. Just a slow, creeping shift that I couldn't quite explain. It started with a feeling, barely noticeable, like the air around me had grown heavier, like people stood just a little farther away when they spoke. And one afternoon, while folding laundry, I caught a faint, sour scent. I thought it was the towels, then the closet, then the detergent. But deep down, I knew. And once that realization crept in, everything else changed. I started moving more carefully, leaning back just a little when someone hugged me, skipping lunch invitations, sitting farther from my husband on the couch, not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't want him to lean in. It wasn't shame. It was fear. Fear of being noticed for the wrong reason. Fear that my body was betraying me. Quietly, invisibly. No one warns you about this kind of change. No doctor says one day your natural scent might shift. No magazine tells you that postmenopausal skin doesn't fight bacteria the same way. That sweat glands shrink. That hormones fade. That your sense of self can start to fade with them. And so you try harder. You scrub more. You buy stronger soaps. You use powders, sprays, perfumes, layer after layer until your skin burns, but the doubt still lingers. Because the truth is, it's not about dirt. It's about balance. It's about understanding how your body has changed and how your old habits might no longer serve the woman you are today. You're not falling apart. You're not less feminine. You're just living in a body that's asking for something different. It's something gentler. It's something wiser. Something that begins not with shame, but with listening. Her name was Margaret, 72 years old, a retired elementary school teacher. The kind of woman who used to wear pearls to the grocery store, who ironed her pillowcases and never stepped outside without lipstick. She had always been confident, warm, the center of every family photo. But something had changed. I first met her on a quiet Thursday morning. She arrived early for our talk, sitting politely in the waiting room with her purse clutched tight in her lap. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes said everything her words did not. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And when she spoke, it came out in a whisper. "I think I smell," she said. Not in a way that invited laughter, not like a joke or an exaggeration. It was a confession, and my heart ached. She went on to explain how she showered daily, sometimes twice, used perfumed soap, deodorant, a dab of rose water behind each ear. She did everything right, everything she'd always done. But lately there had been moments that lingered. A look from her granddaughter, a subtle comment from her sister, a pause from her husband when he leaned in to kiss her goodnight. "It's like I'm still here," she said, "but something about me is off, like my body doesn't belong to me anymore." We sat together for a long time. I asked her gently about her habits. Her towels hung in a damp bathroom for a week at a time. Her underwear, often worn from morning through bedtime. Her bathrobe, soft and cozy, but unwashed for almost a month. And her soaps, strongly scented, alcohol-based, made for a younger skin that no longer matched her own. She listened, quietly, slowly, nodding as if puzzle pieces were clicking into place. Then I offered her something simple. Not a product, not a prescription, just one small shift. "Start with your towel," I said. "Change it every 3 days. Wash it hot, dry it fully, and hang it where it can breathe." She looked at me, surprised. "That's it. That's where we begin." She agreed, a little skeptical, a little curious. 2 weeks later, she returned. This time, she walked in differently. Shoulders a little higher, a scarf around her neck, lipstick just a bit brighter. I asked how she felt. "I didn't expect much," she admitted, "but the smell, it's gone. And not because I masked it, because it actually disappeared." She paused. "But the bigger thing," she said softly. "He held me again." Harry's eyes welled up. I didn't say anything. He didn't either. But when I came to bed in a fresh robe, he reached for my hand, just like he used to. That was the moment. Not just of freshness, but of return. Return to self, to intimacy, to the quiet dignity of feeling whole again. Margaret didn't stop with the towel. Over the next few weeks, she changed her bathrobe weekly, started using a gentle, pH-balanced cleanser, tried going to bed in fresh cotton underwear. He even opened a window in her bathroom, letting the air flow freely. But none of those were miracles. They were signals that said, "I still care for this body. I still deserve to feel clean, to feel close, to feel like me." And that shift, that choice, is what changed everything. It might surprise you to hear this, but the cause of most body odor in older women isn't sweat. It isn't even hygiene, ill value. Let me explain. Your skin, your intimate areas, even your armpits, they each have their own ecosystem, like little gardens, delicate, self-sustaining, perfectly tuned when left in peace. And for most of our lives, those systems run quietly in the background. A balance of moisture, oils, healthy bacteria, and pH, all working together to keep you feeling clean, fresh, and invisible to your own nose. But something begins to shift as we age. First, hormone levels change. Estrogen, once the quiet guardian of your skin's elasticity and resilience, begins to drop. That means drier skin, thinner protective barriers, and a subtle weakening of the skin's ability to resist bacterial overgrowth. Then the sweat glands join in. They don't stop producing altogether, but the composition changes. It becomes richer in proteins, thickier, a perfect feast for odor-producing bacteria. And now, consider the habits we've formed over decades. Using floral soaps full of alcohol and artificial fragrance. Wearing cozy robes that rarely see the washing machine. Drying off with damp towels hung in airless bathrooms. Going to bed in the same underwear worn since breakfast. One by one, these habits begin to tilt the balance. That fresh soap, it strips away protective oils and good bacteria, leaving skin defenseless. The soft robe, it traps moisture, absorbs sweat, and holds onto it long after the shower is over. The towel, a petri dish of fungus and skin cells, pressed against clean skin like a sponge of invisible enemies. And the underwear, a warm, enclosed space where bacteria thrive overnight. None of these things are done out of neglect. In fact, most women double down on cleanliness the moment they suspect something's wrong. But that's the paradox. The more we scrub, the more we scent. The more we try to fix the smell, the more we interrupt the body's natural rhythm. And the more we create the very thing we're trying to avoid. Now, let's look at the vaginal area. This is one of the most misunderstood zones in the female body, especially after menopause. Inside is self-cleaning, a system designed to maintain a pH between 3.8 and 4.5, just acidic enough to keep harmful bacteria at bay. But the moment we insert harsh cleansers, douches, or perfumed wipes, that protective acidity collapses. And instead of freshness, we get irritation. Out of cleanliness, we invite infections. Even wiping too aggressively or using the wrong toilet paper can create micro tears in mature skin, tiny doorways for discomfort, and yes, odor. The armpits tell a similar story. Each shave strips away not only hair, but layers of skin. The deodorant we layer on after, often full of aluminum or fragrance that reacts with broken skin and bacteria, producing more smell, not less. Even something as simple as not rinsing properly can leave behind a residue. And over time, that residue becomes the foundation for something stubborn, sour, and hard to wash away. But here's the turning point. Once you understand the biology, you begin to realize the power is still in your hands. Because balance can be restored. You don't need a drawer full of products. You don't need medical-grade soap or scented powders. You just need to work with your body, not against it. Think of it like this. If your garden is dry and brittle, you don't pour bleach on it and expect roses to bloom. You water it gently and clear the weeds. You let the sunlight in, and with a little patience, it begins to heal. Your body's no different. When you let it breathe, when you feed it gentle, respectful care, when you stop fighting it and start listening, you'll notice something else fading. The fear, the distance, the quiet doubt that used to whisper, "Is that me?" Because now you'll know exactly what it is. And even more importantly, you'll know how to make it right. Where Margaret started making small changes, she didn't do it all at once. She didn't throw out her whole bathroom. She didn't replace every product. She started with one habit, and another. And before long, her entire routine had shifted, not dramatically, but deeply. Here's how it happened. And here's what you can begin doing too. The first thing she changed was her towel. For years, she had used the same towel for 5, 6, sometimes 7 days. Hung behind the door, folded in half. Soft, familiar. but always a little damp, and unknowingly always a little alive, with the kind of life that creates smells. Invisible bacteria, mold spores, tiny particles that cling to skin even after a fresh shower. So she bought 3 new towels, not fancy, just clean. She rotated them every 3 days, washed in hot water, dried fully. And suddenly, the mustiness disappeared. She told me, it wasn't even my body, it was my towel. All this time, I thought it was me. Then came the soap. Margaret had always used a beautifully scented bar, lavender and chamomile. It made her feel elegant, feminine, but it was also loaded with alcohols and perfumes, ingredients that stripped her skin of good bacteria and left it raw. So she switched, not to something expensive, to a gentle, fragrance-free cleanser made for sensitive skin, just for the outside. And within days, her irritation faded. The itching, the redness, even the dryness, gone. She looked in the mirror and felt, for the first time in months, like her body wasn't fighting her. Then she remembered something she hadn't thought about in years. Pinchot, her bathrobe. It hung behind her bathroom door. She wore it after every shower, but she hadn't washed it in weeks. Robe, she laughed softly, was like a perfume sponge, only not the good kind. So she began washing it every Saturday, letting it dry in sunlight, rotating between 2 robes so one could breathe while the other rested. The difference? She could feel it on her skin, that soft, musty cling, gone. And more than that, her husband noticed. He didn't say much, but one evening as she passed him on the way to the kitchen, he leaned in, and he lingered. Next, she turned to her feet. It's funny how we ignore them. We let the water run over them in the shower and assume that's enough. But for Margaret, they had become a secret source of smell, and not strong, just enough to make her slip off her shoes in private. So she changed that too. Every shower, she bent down, used a soft cloth, washed between her toes, patted dry, and once a week used a pumice stone to gently remove dead skin. But the real change? She started drying her feet last, carefully, completely. No more dampness hiding in her slippers. Then came a surprising one, her toilet lid. For decades, she flushed with the lid open. Didn't think twice. But after learning about toilet plume, those invisible clouds of bacteria that shoot up 6 feet into the air, she began closing the lid every time. It felt silly at first, but her bathroom started smelling cleaner. Her products stayed fresher. Her toothbrush didn't have that strange, stale edge anymore. Little shift, big impact. She also stopped wearing the same underwear to bed. For years, if she hadn't sweat during the day, she'd keep them on through the night. But now she understood how moisture, oils, and bacteria trapped against the skin could multiply, especially in warmer, enclosed places. So before bed, she changed into fresh cotton, sometimes none at all, letting her body breathe. She woke up lighter, drier, more at ease in her own skin. She smiled when she told me, "It's like my body finally exhaled." The bathroom trash bin was another quiet enemy. She used to empty it only when full, but pads, tissue, swabs, they all left trace moisture behind, trapped under a lid, brewing quietly. Now she empties it every 2 days, wipes it out once a week, adds a sprinkle of baking soda to the bottom, and even drops in a cotton ball soaked with lavender oil. Her bathroom, fresh, not like perfume, but like open air. And finally, her underarms. She always believed shaving meant cleaner skin. But after every shave, she skipped the rinse, layered on deodorant too soon, never gave her skin time to reset. Now she rinses gently, pets dry, waits a few minutes before applying anything. And just like that, the lingering sourness that once puzzled her, Margaret didn't become someone new. She didn't chase youth. She didn't spend hundreds on luxury products. She returned to something older, something wiser, something deeply respectful of the body she had earned. Each of these changes was small, but each one was an act of self-love, a message to her skin, her senses, and the people around her. I still care, I still notice, I still want to feel close. And day by day, the scent of shame was replaced by the scent of softness, freshness. Because real hygiene, especially after 60, isn't about being harsh. It's about being in harmony. And the more you listen, the more your body will say, "Welcome back." All afternoon, after a community health talk, a woman approached me slowly. She was elegant, silver hair, pressed blouse, a small leather purse tucked under her arm. She waited until the room was nearly empty before she stepped forward and whispered, "I think everything you said makes sense, but I'm 78. Is it too late to start?" I looked at her and smiled. "No," I said, "it's not too late. It's just finally the right time." Because that's the myth so many of us carry, that change only matters when we're young. That once a certain line is crossed, some invisible number on a calendar, we're no longer worth the effort. That discomfort, smell, distance, and disconnection are just things we're meant to accept. Like, they're the price of living long. But that's not the truth. That's resignation, and you were not made to resign from yourself. Your skin still listens. Your body still responds. Your senses still long for softness, for dignity, for connection. One of the most common questions I hear is, what if I've already done the damage? What if my body is past repair? And to that, I always say this: no one plants a seed and expects a tree overnight. But that doesn't mean the seed isn't growing. It just means healing takes time, especially when we've spent years ignoring the whispers of our own needs. And for those with health conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, fragile skin, these changes aren't just possible, they're essential. Because harsh products, long-standing habits, and layers of synthetic fragrance aren't just ineffective. They're dangerous when your body is already working harder to stay balanced. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, about saying, I still matter enough to do this differently, about letting your skin breathe again, about giving your body a chance to feel safe again, about not mistaking silence for surrender. You see, one of the greatest lies aging tells us is that we're done growing, that we no longer get to change, that it's too late to come back to ourselves. But the body doesn't speak in years. It speaks in care, in attention, in ritual, in love. So, if you're wondering whether these small steps are still worth it, let me say this clearly. If you can feel, you can still change. If you can breathe, you can still heal. If you're listening now, you're already on your way. The last time I saw Margaret, she wasn't in a rush. She stood a little taller, her eyes brighter. She wore a soft yellow scarf, light makeup, and her favorite earrings, the small gold hoops her husband had given her on their 30th anniversary. As she sat down across from me, she said something simple. I don't think it was ever really about the smell. She paused. It was about how far I'd let myself drift, from feeling like a woman. That silence that follows you from the bathroom to the bedroom. The hesitation before accepting a hug. The quiet longing to be held without fear or embarrassment. It all begins to change with the smallest of gestures. Fresh towel, a robe that smells like sunlight, a pair of soft cotton underwear before bed, a choice, again and again, to return to your body. This isn't about fighting age. It's about honoring what age has given you. You've lived, you've carried, you've endured, and now you deserve to feel safe in your own skin again. The habits we share today aren't just about hygiene. They are invitations. Invitations to come back to yourself, to soften, to reconnect, to be near the people you love without holding your breath. Because intimacy at its core is not about perfection. It's about presence. And when you feel fresh, you move differently. You smile more easily. You let people close. So today, maybe start with one thing. Change your towel. Wash your robe. Open a window. But let the air in. And the shame out. Because you are still here. And you are still worthy of love, of closeness, and of feeling proud in your own skin. Always.